You ready?
Yeah.
You ready? All right, hold on. Here we go.
We're live here at Bluebell Park. This is the My Aggie Nation Podcast. I'm Travis Brown with Eagle. I'm here with Brooks Holton, our special guest with the Louisville Courier-Journal. It's Super Regional Week. It's Texas A&M versus the Louisville Cardinals here at Bluebell Park. Winner goes to Omaha. Brooks, first, we got to start off, before we even get into any baseball, the cool story you said. You actually played football at a university that a lot of Aggie fans will be pretty familiar with.
Yeah, so I played football at Center College, which is the team that Texas A&M played the day that they created the 12th man tradition. So it was my first time in Texas, my first time ever in College Station. So first thing I did when I got here was find the 12th man statue and send a picture pointing to Center College on the plaque and send it to a bunch of my buddies from back home.
That's cool. Is that something that people from Center College kind of know loosely, the Dixie Classic legend there?
People at Center know more about the famous upset of Harvard. So that was in 1921, I think. Center won 6-0. It was considered like the biggest upset in college football history at the time, and it still holds a place there. So that is bigger, mostly because Center won the game.
Right.
And but yeah, that is something that if you play football, you typically know.
Yeah.
I also think, and fact check me on this later, but I think that Center might have like a winning record against Bama, dating back to like all time.
Nice.
Like one of the few schools who can say that.
Nice. Well, we'll get into now some baseball because
Sure.
that's what we're doing here this weekend. You cover the Louisville program here for at least the last little bit. What is some of the storylines? What are some things that people who are coming out to the series will see in the Cardinals?
Well, I think the big storyline is the fact that they had to fight their way back. Losing this second game of the regional and having to claw their way back from the brink, and they did so with the bats. I mean, you beat Michigan 20-1. And to force a game 7 of the regional. And then, that game on Monday was nuts. Louisville was up 7-2, blew the lead after like a weather delay, came back out in the bottom of the 8th with a 4-run inning. Yeah. 4-run inning to win, close the door in the 9th. So, the biggest storyline is simply the fact that the team is back in the tournament for the first time since they last reached the College World Series 2019. And, they have this fighter mentality. The team preaches a lot, how they're scoring a lot of runs in the late stages of the game. I would just be on the lookout for that. This is a team that, I think that no lead is safe. At the same time, no lead is safe for Louisville as well, because the pitching staff has kind of been hit or miss here over the last few weeks.
Yeah, we talked to Coach Dan McDonald a little bit before this. He talked about they have their one stud, their one pitcher, and then it's a little bit by committee, but it's something that's worked for them this year. What can A&M fans kind of look for from the pitching staff?
Well, I say that Jared Poland, the game he had, game 2 against Michigan, he gave up a season-high 7 runs. That's the bar for absolute worst for him. I would hope, coming into a hostile environment like this, maybe that continues. He doesn't get into a flow early. But I will say that the guys they called upon in the later stages of the regional stepped up, had some of the best starts of the season. And also the bullpen has a lot of guys who can come in. Tate Keener he was a starter to begin the year, moved to the bullpen and is working through. He had a streak of 10 and a third scoreless, got that snapped in the regular season finale and is picked back up with the start of the postseason. So since the ACC tournament, he hasn't given up a run in about 8 1/3 innings. So he's on a roll. The closer, Persecki, is also solid. After having that big rally in the 8th against Michigan, he came in and closed the door in the 9th. And I thought that was a really strong showing from him. His team gives him a lot of momentum. You come right out and you do what you're supposed to do. So I think that this is going to be a series. The teams are really evenly matched. So I really think it all comes down to, which player steps up.
Yeah, it's a matchup that most people wouldn't think that A&M would go against a team that actually hits the ball maybe better statistically. But this is a Louisville team that's done that and leads almost every hitting statistic if you match both the teams up. They had to kind of hit their way into the Super Regional, like you mentioned in that last game. From the offensive standpoint, who stands out?
Cameron Masterman had, he had a weekend that was probably the best of his season. He hit 4 home runs, a home run in each of the last 4 games of the regional. And the last one was the one that won it in game 7 against Michigan. So he's coming in about as hot as you could, possibly ask for out of a player. Dalton Rushing, He's leading the team in home runs. He's 3 away from tying the program record in a single season. Up and down the lineup, though, they have guys that can get on base and guys that can move runners just all over. So this saying they're really balanced. They have a few guys that are coming in extremely hot, and if they can carry that over, I mean, the sky's the limit in terms of how many runs they can put up.
Sure. So we won't ask for any kind of prediction or anything here, but what do you think are the keys that you need to see that fans from Louisville would need to see for the Cardinals to be successful this weekend?
I mean, I think that it comes down to the game one starter out of Jared Poland. If he can put up some scoreless frames early, it gives the offense a chance to build a lead, and that's how you steal a game here. You coming out as the road team, game one, you don't know what to expect with this crowd. If he can really set the tone, I think that's huge. I think that just playing, both coaches talked about it, playing clean, and just limiting the amount of extra outs they give teams.
Exactly. Well, real quick before we go to the next segment, tell everyone how they can find your stuff and how they can follow you online.
Yeah, you can follow me on Twitter, just at Brooks Holton, Holton, and I write for the Courier-Journal in Louisville, Kentucky.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much for Brooks. We'll be back here in a second with more My Aggie Nation podcast.
What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to the My Aggie Nation podcast. Alex Miller from the Eagle here, joined by Travis Brown. All right, Travis, it's the second weekend of the NCAA tournament in baseball. What's kind of the key storyline for the Aggies heading into this weekend?
Well, this is 2 matchups of teams that are absolutely offensive minded. I mean, we talked a lot to the coaching staff at A&M about them hoping that they didn't need to, or that teams don't necessarily swing their way to Omaha. These are 2 teams that might actually just swing their way to Omaha. A&M's pitching has just an edge better on the statistical categories than Louisville's. Louisville's is just an edge better on the hitting, which is something that's kind of would be surprising probably for most people who have followed the Aggies this year with how well they've hit the ball. But this has every making for just an absolute boat race of a game, just where it's a lot of offensive series.
Yeah, I mean, just with talking with both coaches in today's press conference, I mean, Louisville, they know who their Friday guy is, Jared Poland. He's been their guy. But from there, it's just kind of TBA all the way through. And then for A&M, it sounded like Jim Schlossnagle, he's still trying to make his final decisions on what the Aggies are going to do on the mound, starting pitcher-wise as well.
I wouldn't be surprised if it went the same way with Dallas to start it out and Detmer to go second. Dallas is it's kind of interesting because you can talk about them as your number 1 or number 2 guys, but at different points in the season, they've been the number 1 or the number 2 guy, depending on how they've pitched. Dallas has probably been the guy with a little bit of a better form in the last little bit with his last 2 starts coming back from that little bit of a hiatus, and you might want to match him up against their big horse at the start of the rotation. But then Nathan Detmer, through the majority of SEC play, when they were cranking off that series win after series win, was their Friday night guy. He was their ace. Has been a little bit shaky his last 2 starts out, but would definitely be a good option to go against TBA in their lineup. So I think you probably will see the Dallas Detmer Prager kind of situation like they did at the regional, and they did through the SEC tournament as well.
You know, we mentioned Detmer's struggles, but part of that's got to be credited to the poor play behind him with his defense. A lot of errors both in the SEC tournament against Alabama, and then as well last weekend against Louisiana when he threw. That was something that Schloss really talked about in his press conference, is that, Louisville, this is a team that, is bunting is part of their offense. And that's been a weak spot fielding wise for the Aggies lately. How important is it for A&M going to have to be to play a cleaner game in the field this week?
I mean, it's of the utmost importance, and the pitchers are actually not only included in that, but probably one of the main factors in that as well. I mean, Micah Dallas actually goes out there and has 2 errors in his start, and Louisville, as something that Jim Schlossnagle mentioned in his press conference today, is a team that likes to bunt. We talked to Matt Deggs, the coach at Louisiana, last week, and he said that, he knew that PFP's pitcher's fielding position or pitcher's fielding practice is something that A&M has struggled with at times this year, and they weren't afraid to get a bunt down or 2 in a row and make those pitchers make plays. Schlossnagle said that bunt coverages, bunt defense was something that they've focused on a lot heading into the series, knowing that that's something that Louisville leans on. And so pitchers are going to have to field their position in this game. They're going to have to make good, clean throws and limit the game to 27 outs, like Jim Schlossnagle said, and not give them free outs, because that is 100% a way to lose this series with an offensive-minded team.
Yeah, I'm just looking at the scoreboard, and they got the thermometer gauge up there. It's 98 right now, 3 o'clock here on a Thursday afternoon.
You can't see the HD sweat coming off my face
but
right now.
Trust us, it's here. Today's supposed to be the first 100-plus day in College Station in over 600 days. Saturday's forecast is like 105. Mm-hmm. So, how much is the heat going to play into this series? I mean, I know that they said that Louisville deals with weather up there, but it's just not the same when you add in the humidity, and you're going to be playing on Saturday at 2:00 through the afternoon.
We'll have to see. I think that's another instance where it will certainly affect the pitchers, maybe more so than anyone else, having to stand out there, having to go through. We might see some shorter outings from some of the guys just because of having to adapt to and maybe not adapting too well with the heat. The heat might kind of count like a pitch count, like making a pitcher force throw more pitches. If you're out there and as a hitter for both sides, fouling off a lot of pitches, making a pitcher work, making him stay out there and stay out of. We hear there's a big fan going on back there in the A&M dugout here. If they can stay away from that fan, it'll grind them down a little bit more, and that's something definitely to look out to. Of course, they have all of the best nutritionists and trainers and people on both of these staffs who are going to make sure the teams are hydrated, drinking water, like they said, drinking and eating electrolytes and staying up to date with that kind of stuff. But yeah, it's going to be a drag. I think that plays a little bit, you would have to admit, into A&M's favor because they have been out here all of this week practicing in this stuff. But that being said, all these programs, A&M included, has air-conditioned batting cages. You don't want to keep guys out in the heat too long.
No.
There's going to be an adjustment period, and it's going to be a little bit of a battle of attrition. Heaven forbid, especially on one of those like the Saturday 2:00 game that goes into extras or anything like that, then it's really going to be a battle of attrition and who has hydrated, who can battle the temperatures more so than anything else. Throw in the catchers and Troy Clonch as well.
Right, yeah, and I mean, TBD on when the Sunday game will be played. That's going to be a television decision, I'm sure. Obviously, if they had to play again on 2:00 on Sunday, that'd be big compared to playing like they do Friday at 7:30. What do you feel like is going to be the biggest keys to A&M winning this weekend?
Yeah, definitely pitching. If they can be the staff that comes out and throws some shutdown innings and keeps the runs at bay, I mean that's probably the easiest way to win the super regional of two offensive teams. So a lot of eyes on the pitching, a lot of eyes on the starting pitching. The starting pitching hasn't been great for the Aggies, not only through the whole course of the season, but in the last through the postseason hasn't necessarily been great. And then it's which teams can outslug each other too. You have four players, the top two players from each team are both batting, I believe, above 350. And so there's going to be a lot of hitting. Jack Moss is somewhere in the 500 range through postseason right now. And so who can drive those runs in at the big key moments? They're teams that you think that A&M is a team of destiny with all the times that they've been able to come from behind and score the big runs and get the big home runs. But that's exactly what Louisville did against Michigan. And it's been kind of an MO of that team is finding runs, coming up with big clutch home runs. So it's kind of two teams of offensive destiny going against each other. And we'll have to see how that plays up. But two, when you do look at these pitching stats, and it's something I ask about, I'm going to write about a little bit about, it's not necessarily contained to these two teams. If you look across college baseball, it is a very offensive season this year in all of college baseball. Jim Schlossnagle attributed that to maybe some he doesn't like maybe how pitching instruction at the lower levels before they got into college has shaped up, and the development of secondary pitches, change up, off speed stuff isn't quite there as it has been in years past. But when you look at home runs, there's been 4,000 more home runs hit this season now at this point than the entire season last year. The batting average is up about 20 points, national average from last year, and RBIs are way up as well in the thousands up. I mean, it is a very, very much offensive year this year. So these pitchers are going to have seen that coming from both of their respective conferences.
What do you think making the College World Series would mean to this A&M program as they're trying to do it for the first time in 5 years?
I mean, I think it means something with this new coaching staff that they could do that in the first season, coming in with what everyone thought was a little bit of a makeshift roster, with having to dip so much into the transfer portal and just fill holes and find guys to get out on the field. That would be very impressive to start out with. But I think when you talk about the postseason in Texas A&M, it goes back to winning a game in Omaha. And I think that making the College World Series certainly means something, but winning a game in Omaha is what's really going to make the difference and mean something to this program. So it starts this weekend with the Super Regional, 2 games to advance then, and then getting that ever elusive win at the College World Series is important.
Well, Jim Schlossnagle said he's hoping to get 2 more Pringles chips fed to him. Have a feature on that in Friday's paper about the whole Pringles shenanigans and fun that the A&M baseball teams had this season. Travis, it's going to be hot. It's going to be a competitive.
Drink your water.
Yeah, drink your water. Hey, you can bring a water bottle into the game that's unopened. I just want people coming to the game to know that, because you should know that and you should take advantage of that, because it's going to be hot.
Yeah, for sure. I think that's all the time we have for this week's My Aggie Nation podcast. So for Alex Miller, I'm Travis Brown. Big thanks to Brooks in the first segment. We'll see you next week.
It seems like every day, everything just has a way to burst at the seams. But if we don't watch what we're doing, our hearts will get ruined by silly things. Good love ain't easy, girl, we know that's true. And if we wanna keep it, we gotta watch everything that we do, yeah. Don't wanna make sure, my baby, make sure you're sticking with me. Don't wanna make sure that we'll be on